Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. We're up to part 67 of the Emergency Storage Shed Cleanout series. Look how far back we can go in the shed now. We're really making some progress. And today's episode, we're going to tackle a vintage TV. We've got a lot of those to get through. Hopefully it goes, and if it does, we'll probably just test the next one. And we'll work out how to sell them, what we're going to do with them. If they don't go, they might be a repair job, or they might be a scrap out. We'll make all those decisions as we go. I like making decisions on camera because it's a little traumatic, but it makes me decide. So let's go and have a look. And major breakthrough for the shed, we have a light. So now it's much more like a shed than a cupboard, a large cupboard full to the roof. We're getting far enough back that I needed a light, and I do a lot of work out here in the evenings. So, initially this was just a walk through to my main shed. But now we're getting a bit of space in here, so I figured a light was fitting. So we're working on that bottom shelf. We got rid of the toolbox and a few other bits and pieces and some power tools in previous episodes. I'm not going to pick and choose. I'm not going to shirk my responsibilities. We have to deal with everything in here. So let's tackle this vintage CRT TV. It looks like it's a Sony. I don't know where it came from. It could have been given to me as e-waste. It might have come out of someone's house. I've been stashing them away for years because, well, just because. Didn't like throwing things out that may be useful. And CRT TVs have got a bit of value these days. So it's a Sony. It looks like it's mid-range size, not super heavy. Let's get it into the workbench and see what we can make of it. Well, it may be only a medium-sized one. It's a bit of a challenge to get in here. And it's got a bit of weight to it. So we'll try not to guillotine the cord, and we will have a better inspection. Okay, well here she is. It's a Sony Trinitron, which I believe are the more sought after TVs to go for. It's quite dusty, but I think it would probably date to the 1990s. A lot of the electronics I've had lately dates to about then. I guess, after 20 years or so. Well, I've been in business for over 20 years, so in that time, these ones, 20 years ago weren't actually that old, and in the time I've been in business, well, if people have upgraded their TVs, new technologies come along, these things have ended up in sheds, and I've acquired them through my business. So, all right, it looks pretty good. There doesn't appear to be any damage to it, although it's a bit scuffed on top. I think something's been rubbing there. I did notice the cord. It looks like someone has actually replaced the plug. So we'll probably need to check that. We can plug it in through our appliance tester and see if it fires up. Let's have a bit of a look around the back and see what the model number is. See if there's any other important things to note. It says Spectrum Sound on the side. And it's got a bit of, you can see up the top here, it's been grazed quite a bit. I'm not sure what's happened there. There's a bit of white on here. I don't know if it's bird droppings or something from in a shed that's spilt on it. And it's a model KV-X2172U, made in the UK. Trinitron colour TV, 240 volts or 220 240 volts, 50 hertz. No mention of the screen size, although I'm guessing 21 would make it a 21 inch. We can measure that to see. It has a SCART connector. And I know inputs are fairly important for the guys that like retro gaming. So it looks like we have a standard RCA output. They're a little bit rusty on the shields there. And that's an adapter of some sort. So it's SCART. 2 SCART connectors and that adapter. I'm not really up with what these do. It has S-video there and RCA sockets. What I'm going to do is, if it works, I'm going to clean it up and sell it. I have no need for any of these here. I'm not into gaming. And I believe, for those that don't know, that these are very good for running retro games on, much better than your flat screen and LCD TVs. I don't really understand why, and I don't feel I need to. So let's plug it in, power it up, and see what happens. So we'll plug it into appliance tester. We'll give it some power. I don't have a remote control for it. And let's just adjust the camera a little. And we'll see what we've got here. Power button. Okay. I saw a flash of something. It made a noise as if the screen's powering up. And I just heard a click. Now, I don't know what that means. Oh, we have a red flashing light. So that may be an issue. Oh, there's a little screen down here. Now, I'm not sure what the red flashing light means. It may have a fault. That may be like a fault code. And we have some more inputs and outputs there. Well, now it's flashing so many flashes on B and then one on A. I might have to Google that to see what that means. But obviously it's not going to fire up. We don't have any life on the screen. That's a little disappointing. Anyway, I might go and just Google, see if I can work out what it is. We might pull the back off it and see if we can diagnose a fault. And I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, I'm back in the workshop tonight after a busy day at work. I've just powered this TV on again and it did exactly the same. It seems like it's going to come on and then there's a bit of a click at the back and it goes off, and then we have some lights coming on. Now I've counted them. It does 13 flashes on one side, then one flash on the other, and then 13 again. It's obviously a fault code. I did a bit of Googling and didn't come up with anything specific. Now, I do have another Sony Trinitron that I tried to repair a bit over 12 months ago, and I failed. And the video's up, and I'll link it underneath actually. And it was a similar size to this. We might as well turn this off now. But it had a vertical deflection problem, and it just had one bright line right across the middle. And I found a few bad solder joints and fixed a few things. There was a dodgy capacitor and that sort of stuff. But I still didn't have success. And I had some fantastic comments from you guys. And it turns out that it's most likely the vertical output IC. So I haven't got back to that TV, and I will do. And this one might be a similar thing. I'm going to take the back off it. We'll have a look. I suspect it's probably a power supply issue, given that we have no sound as well as no picture at all. As I said, the other one had just a bright line across the middle with sound. So this one's got another issue. TVs of this era do have issues with bad solder joints, and also capacitors can play up. And obviously, well, I've been told that the vertical output IC is a common problem. But I think this one's possibly more of a power supply problem. So let's pull the back off and see what we can find. If it's a more complicated job than one little fault that we fix and it powers up, if it turns out more complicated, I shall perhaps carry this over to another video. So let's get the back off. And as I said, this video may well turn out to be an inspection, and we'll put it aside for another time. But I want to deal with it. Now, my options are, I'm not going to scrap it. That's not one of my options, because these are quite a sought after TV. I think even if I tried to sell it, I could probably eBay it as it is, not working, and there's enough guys out there that know these things and would probably buy it. It might only make 50 bucks, but they'd probably buy it as parts only and fix it up themselves. And we'd get a lot more than scrap money. I don't want to scrap things that are sought after. What have we got under here? A couple more screws. So options, scrapping certainly off the table as an option. I think that's it. Oh, we've got our adapter. So yeah, we could either sell it as is, or I could try and fix it. I may still end up selling it as a non-worker, but at least we've had a go. And judging from the response I got from my last video about these, there's plenty of guys out there prepared to help, which is fantastic, and that way we all learn. So I have linked the other video. Well, I will link it. I'll put a link below, as I said before. And if anyone's interested in these things, I suggest you go back and look at that video and read all the comments. There was some great help there. All right, what do we got here? It looks like there's speaker wires. We'll unplug those. Being careful what we touch because it has just been powered up. Okay, we can get the case out of the road. And we have to discharge it. Make sure there's no power on the capacitors, but also the screen can, the actual tube can, from what I've been told, basically act as a capacitor and hold a lot of charge. And you need to discharge underneath that cap there to, remove the chance of getting a nasty electric shock. Someone did comment that it's a fairly decent belt. It won't kill you, but it's like you've been whacked with a lump of wood. And really, who wants to be whacked with a lump of wood? And I guess if you have a weak heart or something, well, it could be more serious. So the whole board at the bottom, it actually looks pretty dirty. Just scanning the capacitors quickly, I can't see any bulged ones, but there's still a chance one is. I'll have to identify the power supply section. But yeah, it had a bit of moisture, I would say. I'll get the camera off the stand, hang on. Here we go, it's a bit dusty and dirty, but there's quite a lot of light surface rust to all these shielding cans, particularly in there. So it's been not in the most favourable conditions as far as storage goes, maybe damp air. I don't think since I've had it, I expect it was in a shed before I got it. I think I had it stored in my shipping container, which should have been pretty dry. And here, well, could have got a bit of damp air here, I suppose. So yeah, it's going to be a bit hard to tell. It really needs the boards pulled out and cleaned up. And hopefully maybe we might spot something like a bad solder joint or something. I think it's going to be more involved than what I want to spend on it in this video as far as just an episode of the emergency storage shed. So I reckon I'm going to handball it, and we can allocate it as a separate video when we inspect it and, hopefully find a problem and hopefully fix it. This is probably a power board here. Let's have a look at this. There's a really large capacitor there. That's a rectifier, bridge rectifier. I can't see any issues with the capacitors, but it's not always evident. Yeah, we certainly need to unplug all the boards and pull them out and inspect. So I think I'm just going to slide the cover back on. We might put it out in the shelf out in the emergency storage shed there and tag it as a project soon. And I don't want to leave it too long, but I think that's the best thing to do now. If I start pulling boards out here and we start investigating, I don't have the time. I've got to go off to the farm in a couple of days. And I like to have a quick result for these emergency storage shed clean out videos because I'm trying to get one up each week. So yeah, I'm just continuing to scan around while I'm talking, but I seriously can't see any obvious issues. It's pretty hard just scanning like this, of course. If there's a bad solder joint, it's obviously going to be on the bottom of the board. So all right, we'll just put the cover back on this baby. We will look at it in a future video, hopefully not too far away, because I don't want these things sitting around my shed. They do take up a lot of room. And I will be getting back to that other one and ordering a vertical IC for it and hopefully fix that and I can sell it. Okay, I just spotted something. Just as I turned the camera off then in that last little clip, I spotted something, and I think I might even put it up for sale as is. And the reason being, other than the fact that it's a little rusty in places and it clearly hasn't been looked after the best, I'm thinking, all right, it's had a new plug on it. Someone's done some work on it, as we pointed out when we first got it out here. I was just noticing these cable clamp things. There's no cables going through them. So what's going on there is someone rerouted some cables. And then I spotted a little bit of tape down here. Now have a look at this. There's a little bit of tape. And underneath the tape, I just lifted it up to have a look. There are components. What's the go with that? And what are they? They're three-legged components. Someone's been in here and done work on it, I guess. I don't know. I'm thinking it's going to be more trouble than what it's worth. I reckon I might put it in the shop, or maybe advertise it in a Facebook group at like something like 20 bucks, not working, and someone with much more knowledge than me can have a go at it. I also noticed in on the heat sinks in here, there's a lot of heatsink compounds spread all around the place. That doesn't look factory, that's too messy. Can you see that? There's not enough light. Hang on, we'll turn it around. Or I've got a torch here so maybe you can see a bit better. What do you guys make of that? That looks a bit weird. There's a lot of heatsink compound around. Whatever that component is actually doesn't even have a screw through it. It's just got a clamp over it. That may be original, but I don't think it would have come out of the factory with that compound smeared everywhere. Yeah, so I'm just a bit sus about this whole thing. I think it's had a bit of work done on it. And who knows if it was even remotely successful, or if someone really didn't know what they were doing was fiddling with it. I'm just not sure. So I think I'm going to put it together, just put the case back on and put it in the shop, and we'll just sell it cheap for someone to have a play with. And, you know, if they know more than me, they'll possibly have some success. Hopefully. I'd like to see it saved. So there we go, guys. I'm going to call it quits here. I'm going to quit before I start, because I think my time is better spent elsewhere just at the moment. If I only had one project in my life and this was it, well, I would do it. But you all know that I've got more than enough projects to keep me going. I've wiped a bit of armor all over it, so it looks a bit nicer. It presents pretty well. And I said 20 before, but I'm going to put it in the shop for 50 and say won't power up, some fault code. I'll just put a little note on it to say what I've found out about it. But there's plenty of guys out there, as I said, that know their way around these things and like to fix them up. I think it'll be snapped up at 50. If it doesn't, I'll discount it until it sells. But certainly we'll get better money for it as it is complete than what we ever would for scrap metal. So that's where we're up to. It's going into the shop. And $50, I'm going to write $50 down in the kitty, because I've seen these sell for many hundreds of dollars. And I think this is a pretty sought after model. So we'll see how we go. So 50 bucks more in the kitty. Something large out of my shed. Got to be happy with that. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.